Hello everyone. In today's class, we are going to do environmental issues and our part 3 is water pollution. So as we have been talking about the pollution, that there is different type of pollution and pollution is because of the undesirable change. So undesirable change in air, in case of water, in case of land and in case of soil. So in the previous part we have talked about how the pollution has been caused, how air pollution has been caused, and in today's class we are going to look at the issues with the water pollution. Right? So we know that water is very important for living. Right? Water is one of the precious component of our natural resources. So hydrosphere, which contains water. So hydrosphere contains 97% seawater, whereas it contains 3% fresh water. So this water is really important for the survival of the organism. So let's talk about water pollution. So water pollution is the contamination of water bodies. That means water bodies is contaminated, is having some other substances which is not needed, like lakes, rivers and oceans are as a result of the human activities. So we know that human activities, or we call it as anthropogenic activities. So contamination due to the human activities in lakes, rivers and oceans is leading to water pollution. So as we know that pollution is caused by the pollutant, a water pollutant is any biological, physical or chemical substance which is an identifiable excess is known to be harmful. So any type of pollutant, whether it will be biological, it will be physical or it can be any chemical substance, harmful substances is present in excess is known to be harmful to other living organism, right? So if it is harming one organism type, it may harm other types also because of the imbalance in the food chain. So water pollutants, it includes heavy metals, sediments, certain radioactive isotopes, heat, phosphorus, nitrogen, sodium. So these are known as contaminants. So we know that water is used for various purposes, right? And it is determined by its quality. So water is mainly used in agriculture, right? So by farmers use water. So in agriculture, in farming practices, water is needed. In thermoelectric power generators, so to generate the electricity with the help of water, it is used in power generation also, right? So let's talk about the classification of the water pollutants. So based on the solubility, it is classified into suspended solids, colloidal material and dissolved material. Solubility means it is dissolved in it or it is soluble in it or not. So when we're talking about the suspended solid, these solid particles which are present in the water, right, like sand, silt, clay, etc. So these all are solid material which is present in the water. That's why we call it as suspended solid. Next we have the colloidal material. So these colloidal material, they include fecal matter, bacteria, cloth, paper fibers. So all of these materials which are not dissolved, which are present as such, right? So they are present as a colloidal material. Then you have the dissolved material, right? These include salts such as nitrates, phosphates, etc. So nitrates, phosphate salts, they are easily dissolved in water. So that is why we call it as nitrates and phosphate as dissolved material. So this is how we classify on the basis of solubility. Second is on the basis of nature. So on the basis of nature, it has been classified into physical, chemical, biological. So physical is hot water, oil spills. So these are hot water and oil spills. They are present as the physical pollutant, as their physical nature is present in it, right? In case of chemical pollutant, it includes polychlorinated biphenyls, or we call it as PCBs. That means they are chemically reactive, they are inorganic chemicals, they have phosphates and fluorides. So as we have talked about the fluoride, that is very toxic and excess can actually be harmful. So that is why this is acting as a chemical pollutant. Third is a biological pollutant, that is bacteria, viruses, protozoans, algae. So all of these organisms, they are biologically related and we call it as biological pollutant. Third is on the basis of their origin. Origin means how they are formed, from where they are originated. So as we have discussed in air pollution also about the point source and the non-point source. Point source means which are distinct and they are confined. That means they are stationary. That means they are not moving. So the point source are distinct and they are confined, they are in a particular region only. So the effluent discharge, the chemical or the waste discharge occur at a specific site only, such as the sewage outlet of a municipal area or the effluent outlet of a factory. So from the factory, all the waste material is discharging into the river or on the water resources, that is the point source, right? Next is non-point source. So they cannot be identified easily. That means we are not able to identify what is the source, what is the origin of this waste, as they are intermittent and diffused. That means they are getting from the runoff from the streets, from the agricultural runoff. That means we are not able to identify from the where particular place it is coming. That's why we call it as non-point source, right? So on the basis of origin, we have classified into point source and non-point source. But what is the sources? So when we are talking about the point source, non-point source, what is broadly the source of the water pollution? So if we look at it, one is the municipal water waste, right? So the wastewater which is from our houses, from household and everything, the wastage of it is comes under the municipal wastewater. Industrial wastewater. So industrial wastewater is from both the small scale and large scale industries, right? So both small scale and large scale industries produce wastewater contaminated by the organic and inorganic pollutant, right? So it can be biodegradable pollutant, it can be non-biodegradable pollutant. Then we have the surface runoff. Pollutants like from the surface runoff depending upon the nature of the land over which it is flowing, right? For example, in case of the urban areas. So urban area contain all the non-biodegradable, right? Or the biodegradable organic pollutant, right? But if you're talking about the factories that contain heavy metals, so urban area contain biodegradable, factory contains toxic or heavy metals, right? Then you have the oil spills, right? So accidental discharge can take place of the oil in case of oceans, by the oil tankers, drilling or oil refineries, mainly that causes the pollution. Then you have the agriculture runoff. The runoff from the cropland is contaminated with the pesticides. So these pesticides are used to kill the pest, right? These fertilizers are used to increase the fertility of the soil, right, to provide the nutrients, yes, but they are the harmful chemicals when present in excess. When the crops are washed off, this agriculture runoff contains all the chemicals and which is being released into the rivers or the water resources. Then you have sediment. So sediment consists of all the rock and the minerals, including all the gravel particles, sand, silt, clay, that also causes the pollution. Then we have the radioactive discharge, the nuclear waste. So all the nuclear waste from the nuclear power plant, right? So it contains radioactive isotopes which are dumped by the nuclear laboratories, and that causes the water pollution. And at last we have heat. So industries that use water as a coolant, so to cool, right? So water is being used, they release hot water. That means the temperature of the water is very high than the inlet water, the water which is present in the water bodies. So that causes thermal pollution in water bodies. So here if we see, 99.9% is water, impurities are 0.1%. It consists of suspended solids like sand, silt, clay, colloidal matter like fecal matter, bacteria's cloth, paper fibers, and it consists of dissolved material like nutrients, right? Nitrates, ammonia, phosphate, sodium and calcium. So these are the sources of water pollution. Let's talk about it, the wastewater, one by one. So first is the municipal wastewater or the domestic sewage. The liquid waste which is from our house, right? That means we are the source, right? That is coming from the liquid waste, all the garbage which we are not separating into solid and liquid from our domestic activities and other household wastewater are discharged directly into the water bodies, because of which it is causing a major concern for the aquatic organism. So most rivers in our country, including the Ganga, right? So Ganga, as I've shown you the picture of the Ganga, it is highly polluted, and nowadays because of the lockdown, the quality of the Ganga water has been increased, right? So they have been polluted because of the domestic waste, that is all the sewage that has been dumped into the river. So domestic effluents, they carry the biodegradable organic waste. That means it can be decomposed by microorganisms. Yes, it consists of nutrients, it consists of fibrous matter, grit, colloidal particles, fecal matter, pathogens, and the nitrates, phosphates, and all the dissolved salts contained in the detergent. So all we are washing our clothes, we are washing the utensils. So all the water, wastewater which is releasing from our municipal, from the domestic part, from the house, is being released into the river. So if we look at the image of here, this is the effect of sewage discharge on some important characteristics of the river, right? So if you look at, the concentration is increasing of the waste, right? That means pollutants are increasing, which is causing more pollution, right? That means the concentration of pollutant is increasing, the dissolved oxygen is decreasing, right? And the biochemical oxygen demand is more because the amount of oxygen which is dissolved becomes less. So that is how by the sewage discharge only the concentration of the water, concentration of the quality of the water nutrients, they are being decreased. Let's talk about the industrial wastewater or the effluents. So like I told you that in case of the industrial wastewater, the effluents, both the small scale industries or the large scale industries, both produce the wastewater which is contaminated by the organic, that means it can be biodegradable, and inorganic, that is non-biodegradable pollutants. So in the river in India, that is polluted with the industrial effluents. So all the chemical waste, all the factories waste is being released into the river. So these elements, they contain the organic and the inorganic chemical pollutants, like for example the dissolved nitrates, sulfates, heavy metals. So these all are the chemical or the toxic elements. These are the chemical pollutants, and mostly these are non-biodegradable chemicals. That means they are not degraded by the microorganism. So these elements contain both and they are non-biodegradable mostly, right? Let's talk about biomagnification. What is biomagnification? So when we are talking about biomagnification, it refers to magnify, that means increased, or we can say enlarged. Bio is related to organism, right? So when we are talking about the biomagnification, biomagnification refers to increase in the concentration of the toxicant. Concentration means the amount. So amount of the toxicant means the elements or the substances which are present as the pollutant at the successive trophic level. So we know there is a pyramid of the trophic levels, right? So that is for the producers, then consumer, primary, secondary, tertiary. So at the different trophic level, the concentration of the toxicant is increasing. That means the concentration of pollutant is increasing. That leads to biomagnification. So few substances are there in the industrial wastewater, which is because of which there is a biological magnification. That means the increase in the concentration is there, right? And that is phenomena known as because of the mercury and DDT, right? So if we look at this, the mercury is very harmful. It is very toxic in nature. So if we look at the mercury and the DDT, they are causing a lot of problem, a lot of biological magnification because of these substances. And the concentration of DDT, which is very harmful, right? So which is very toxic, is increasing at the successive trophic level, and it starts from 0.003 ppb. ppb means parts per billion. So it starts from billion, then it leads to 25 ppm, which is parts per million. So because of which it is in case of the fish eating birds, right? So we can actually call it as bioaccumulation. right? So DDT is a chemical pesticide which is accumulated and it is very harmful. So many people in Japan died in 1952 because of eating the fishes from Minamata Bay that had mercury. So those fishes had mercury. So now you can relate that this mercury is very harmful for the organism. So it is very harmful in case of the aquatic organisms also, right? And this accumulation of dichlororodiphenyl trichloroethane and polychlorinated biphenyls, that is PCBs, right? So because of the increase of the concentration of PCBs, industrial waste discharge into water, it is leading to biomagnification. So if we look at the diagram of the biomagnification, this is water. Water has DDT of 0.003 parts per billion. So as we know that there is those zooplanktons which are tiny organisms, which are tiny free floating organisms in water, right? So they consume water, right? Then small fish will consume these zooplanktons. Then large fish will consume this small fish. And at last the fish eating birds will consume the large fish. And at every trophic level, the concentration of DDT is increasing, right? So high concentration of DDT, it disturbs the calcium metabolism in case of birds. So this leads to thinning of the eggshell and their premature, causing decline in the bird population, right? So because of this DDT, which is known as diphenyl trichloroethane. So the full form of DDT is diphenyl dichloroethane. So this DDT is increasing, and because of which the biomagnification also increases. Let's talk about one more phenomena that is known as eutrophication. What is eutrophication? It is the process in which the growth of the algae, plants and animals. So algae, plants, animals exceed in a body of water due to development of high concentration of nutrients. So nutrient concentration increases, and because of which, like nitrogen, phosphorus, they are more. So eutrophication is the natural aging of a lake by the nutrient enrichment of its water. And because of the nitrogen and phosphorus, which encourage the growth of the aquatic organism, because of which there is natural aging of a lake. As the lake's fertility is increasing, the plants and animals' life burgeons. That means they are able to increase more, the growth is more, and the organic remains begin to be deposited on the lake bottom, because of which all the pollutants from the man's activities, also like the effluents from the industries and the home, can radically accelerate the aging process, and the whole phenomena is known as cultural or accelerated eutrophication. So there are two types of eutrophication. One is a natural eutrophication and one is the accelerated one. So in the natural process causes the nutrient enrichment in water bodies, right? So it is very slow process. It takes time to complete, like 100 of years to complete it, whereas in case of the accelerated, it is much rapid. It occurs due to the human activities. So let's talk about the case study of the wastewater management. So here we can see that biologists from the Humboldt University and the residents of Arcata developed an integrated wastewater treatment process. So what is this wastewater treatment process? So when we are talking about the wastewater, like all the waste which is like all the wastewater which is releasing, which has been discharged into the river, so can we treat that? Is it possible to treat the wastewater and then again recycle and reuse it? So this is the story within a natural system. So in the process, there are different methods because of which the water can be reused and recycled. So that's sedimentation, filtering, chlorine treatment process is done in the first stage. In the second stage, heavy metals are removed. So during the first process, all the sedimented particles, clay, which are hand-picked or it can be filtered, then chlorine treatment is done on this, right? So next is heavy metals are removed. So all the heavy metals which like arsenic, they have been removed. For this, the 6 connected marshes spreading over the 60 hectares were developed. So there were 6 marshes which are connected together, and the plants and the microorganisms suitable for such area were allowed to proliferate. Proliferate means grow, because of which they are consuming the harmful heavy metals. So more the organisms, they will consume more heavy metals, thereby they will purify the water. So we can say the microorganisms are helpful to us. So besides this, the sanctuary with wide range of biodiversity is maintained by the Friends of Arcata Marsh, and it is FOAM, that is Friends of Arcata Marsh. And this is the case study like we can treat. So on our level also we can look at it. So let's talk about the question that comes. There was a question in 2015 that high value of BOD, that is biochemical oxygen demand. So higher level or higher value of BOD indicates, so like I told you, when there is more demand, that means there is less dissolved oxygen, right? So BOD, higher value or higher level demand is there, that means there is less oxygen dissolved. There was one more question on eutrophication. Eutrophication of water bodies leading to killing of fishes in many due to the non-availability of. So like I told you, there's a more concentration of the chemical like the DDT or the mercury, because of which there's less concentration of oxygen. So the answer of the question comes is because of the lack of oxygen. So because of lack of oxygen, eutrophication increases, and that leads to killing of fishes, right? So this is about the water pollution, the different types of water pollutants are there, and the case study. I hope you understood. Thank you.